This is Frank Lenz, an ambitious cyclist whose goal is to circumnavigate the globe using his bike. This infamous picture of him was taken in Turkey on 1894 during his bicycle tour around the world, and it is the last known photo of him before he went missing. The Lenz family originally came from Germany. His mother emigrated to Pittsburgh, and it was there where Frank grew up much of his childhood. At the age of 17, he received a bike for his birthday gift and immediately fell in love with it. He then joined a cycling club called Allegheny Cyclers, where he, along with other young cyclists, went on trips across states. As he became an adult and worked as an accountant, he still continued to cycle for long distances during his vacation. But it was on 1886 that his love for cycling grew even bigger. He heard that a cyclist named Thomas Stevens became the first person to circumnavigate the globe by bike. He started his trip in San Francisco and cycled across the nation to reach New York. From there, he sailed across the Atlantic Ocean and continued to cycle in Europe to Asia. Frank was so inspired by this that he too wanted to give it a shot. However, he had little money, and this trip would take some serious cash to finance it. And so, he reached out to a company called Outing Magazine to reach a deal with them. The contract was simple. The company was willing to finance the whole thing in exchange for him to take photos of the different places during his trip. Without hesitation, Frank accepted the offer. He didn't waste any time. He set out on May 15, 1892, and with him, he brought along his camera and a small supply bag to carry food as well as extra clothes. He didn't bring much since he wanted to keep the weight low so he could bike faster and finish the journey as quickly as possible. His route was the total opposite of Thomas Stevens. Frank started in his hometown Pittsburgh and rode to Washington, D.C. until he reached San Francisco. From there, he took a ship to Yokohama, Japan. Traveling in a new country became a challenge because of the language barrier. Even though he brought a map with him, he still needed to ask the locals for directions whenever he encountered an unfamiliar territory. But on the upside, he made some friends along the way, and was often surrounded by a group of people since most of them were not yet introduced to what a bike was. This photo really portrays the reactions of the locals when they saw him in Tokaido Road. In most Asian countries, bikes were relatively quite new, so they were very curious about what he was riding. After cycling across Japan, his next stop was China. Before he headed there, he wrote a letter to his stepdad to update him about his journey. Also in the letter, he mentioned that he expects to bike across China within 2 months. As he landed in Shanghai, he was confident that he would finish within his time frame. However, as soon as he reached the rural area, the roads were not as developed as the cities, and it made him difficult to travel with good speed. Not only that, the land area was so large, and the unnamed roads caused a huge confusion all around. In the end, it took him 7 months to bike across the country. After the rough travel in China, he started to ride through Burma, or what is now known as Myanmar. Here, he had to travel across the treacherous jungle, and sometimes had to carry his bike whenever he encountered a muddy area. The obstacle he came across here was not because of the road, but rather the dangerous insects in the jungle. Ultimately, he caught malaria, and his trip was halted significantly. He didn't give up. As soon as he recovered, he continued his journey and reached India. Here, it was more relaxed. He took several more photos than usual and even visited the Taj Mahal. Most of the photos taken were by himself using his tripod or by locals. Finally, his last destination was in Turkey. The photos he took in Japan, China, Myanmar, and India were also sent to the Outing Magazine company, as well as to his parents while he was in the respective country. But when he was in Erzurum, Turkey in April 1894, this photo was the last thing that he ever sent. There was a huge concern about his disappearance, yet after weeks, they still hadn't heard any news of him. There were several theories. One was that he got into an accident. There were a lot of rivers he needed to cross on his route, so this could be a possibility. Another one, which sounds far-fetched, was he got a new identity and went undercover. But the most accepted one that most historians agree upon was that he encountered the wrong people and ended up in a bad situation. Nonetheless, these are still theories, and there is still no solid evidence on what exactly happened to him.